Hi all, so today we are going to see all about information technology, how the choice is done, what is information technology, and when we are seeing the types of ITs, now we are going to study each and every detail about each and every type of IT. Okay, then we are going to see the types of model the IT is and how the organization chooses which model to choose at what time and how it is decided by the managers or the organization or the management. Okay, and even the security side we are going to see, and oh, what type of cost and all different types of models, all about infrastructure. Okay, so first we need to understand what is an infrastructure. So here we are seeing that IT infrastructure is nothing but all the artifacts or all the facilities that is required for the proper functioning of the organization. That's it. Okay, so if we go to pani puri stall, we need that curry, we need that puri, we need that onions and all the stuff. So those will be the infrastructure of that pani puri. Similarly, for an IT organization, our IT infrastructure is ranging from the smallest portable device that is needed for the proper functionality of the organization. Like I can say, for salesperson they need a tablet, so even that is an infrastructure. The biggest server or virtual servers which are there on the cloud or uh, on their physical location, so even that is a infrastructure. So everything which is required for the functionality of the organization is called infrastructure. Now in that we can see the various ranges, right? So we see computer, phones, tabs, which includes both software and hardware, then servers and routers, switches, and also apart from these devices, even the training given to habituate or learn some new technology or how to work with the new devices, and even our physical place that we are working. Okay, all the maintenance, even if there is a fire support, fire drill is happening, even that is an infrastructure. Even when we are working in any kind of organization, if there is a transport facility, even that will be a part of our organization. So all these things which helps in the proper functionality of organization is called infrastructure. Now we are going to study about each of them in detail after some moments within the same video. Okay, yeah, now let's get to this point. So when choosing the infrastructure decisions, we have some question with respect to the business dimension. Similarly, we are going to have some question with respect to the technology issues. So question in the sense, if we are able to answer this questions properly, then we are good to go with the choosing of new infrastructure. And this question will also help us to find the suitable I can say infrastructure which is going to fulfill the needs, or I can say provide the solution of the problem for which we are going to find the infrastructure. Okay, I hope that makes sense. Now next we are going to see about each question. What business needs have to be met with the infrastructure components. So if you see in the question itself, where we are talking about needs, so first the answer that is to be given is, what is the need, why are we going for the infrastructure, what is the use of going to the infrastructure. Because based on that we'll see tech choice has to be based on the needs that are met and that are going to be met in future. Because if we are taking something, it should not only fulfill our current needs, but in future how it is going to affect us or our competitors, or is it going to create a new needs for us, or is it going to suffice all our needs, or what is the scope of satisfaction or the fulfillment that is going to provide to the organization's issues, right? Next we have, how does the technology help organization compete. So suppose we have 10 alternatives. Okay, and out of that I have to choose, like, okay, if this is the technology that is going to be, or after filtration I came across that okay, all these five technologies could help me in resolving my issues. Now out of that I need to see what is the cost of acquisition. Like, if I take the technology, how much cost or how much time or how much training or efforts is it expected from the organization to completely get habituated to it, or make the employees to work upon that. Okay, so that is one question. And after that, once we are decided, next we actually go for the acquisition of the technology. So here acquiring means not buying of the technology, but having that technology implemented in the organization. Okay, next we have, is the technology appropriate for task. Okay, so we found out the needs and then we came to know that it is going to be helpful for solving the problem. Now here we are not seeing whether the technology is going to be solve the problem or not, because that is already answered in the previous question. Now here we are seeing apart from solving the problems, what are all the issues that it could provide us? Like if suppose in future if you want to go for any other technology, how much are we dependent on this technology, okay, and how much again cost or efforts is expected from the organization to keep it like to get away from this technology and get adapted to some other things. Okay, so those kind of things come into the checking of the appropriateness. So it focuses on the alternate technologies. Appropriate tech exactly meets the need of the task. Inappropriate tech either have a shortcomings or excessive in scope. So here what I can say is, suppose I have bought a technology, or I can say I bought a tool. Okay, now it is providing me all the services, like it is providing me 100 services, but I need only 10 services among those. But if I bought that tool, what is happening? I need to pay for all those 100 services. So here it is like providing me excessive services which I don't even need. So unnecessarily I'm paying too much, right? So that is one issue. And even if I need 20 services and it is providing 10 services, that is again a shortcoming, correct? So this was just an example. So that's how we find out the appropriateness of the technology. Now, is the technology best in class? So here we compare. In this question, we came to know. In this question, we came to know about all the alternates available to the technology. Okay. Now here we are seeing the technology that we have choose among all the alternatives. Is it providing us the up to the mark quality compared to the tech, and what is the amount that we are paying? Is it worth that? Because then we go for seeing whether what are the open source tools available for us, then we can go and tweak some changes in that and we can get them free of cost. In that sense also we can have a look. So again, for the big organization, it is not much focus on cost. They just focus that is the technology appropriate or not. But in terms of business, the answer has to be done even though they are financially stable or not. So here they compare the quality in terms of cost. Okay, relevant only to some organization, as you can see, because for some organization money is not the issue. Okay, so these were the questions and answers done in terms of business dimensions. Now for the same decision, the technological questions are also there. So first is the technology scalable? So when talking about scalability, what scalable means, suppose today you have started your organization and today you are taking a technology and it is able to serve 100 requests in 1 second. In layman terms, I can say, let's suppose you have 100 clients and your I can say infrastructure is able to support 100 clients. Tomorrow or after an year, if your client base is increasing to 1000, is the technology will be able to handle all those thousand clients request? Okay, so no. So we have to scale the technology, that is we have to increase the database space, we have to increase the rate of processing, we have to increase the clock cycle and all. So this thing of handling or increasing the or how many clients are we able to handle, or how many requests are we able to handle per second, that is called as scalability. So if we are able to scale it up or scale it down based on our requirement, we call that as a technologically scalable. Okay, next coming to interoperable. So interoperable means, is it able to handle different kind of formats, is it able to work with the different kinds of application? Because if you are bringing some new technology, if it is not able to work with the other technology which is existing in the organization, then what is the use of bringing the technology? Okay, so if you are bringing the new technology and you have to replace everything that is present, that is not a feasible solution. So technology interoperable means when the technology is coming, it should be able to work or communicate or handle the data incoming or outgoing with the existing infrastructure. So that is what we call interoperable. So one good example is, like suppose you are creating an Excel sheet whose extension will be .xlsx, and if there is some other software which is from which you are trying to open this Excel sheet, and if it is able to open that file, means it is interoperable with the Excel sheet, and if it is not able to open, means it is not interoperable. So that was again just an example. Similarly, like in the complex applications, will be able to see that some applications are able to handle the responses or request to the other applications, some are not. So that's where the interoperable questions comes into picture. Next is, what is a technology roadmap? So suppose today I want to buy a Microsoft package. Okay, in that package I am getting PowerPoint, Excel sheet, spreadsheet, Word document, OneNote, and many such as a package I am getting. So the technology roadmap means what that Microsoft is going to do with this package in the near future. Is it going to decommission, that means it is going to remove that package completely, or is it going to update that now and then? Okay, so that is what technology roadmap means. So if you didn't get, let me give you one more one liner explanation. So here technology roadmap means what is the intention or mission or vision of the Microsoft with their Microsoft package. Okay, so that is one example. Suppose today I developed one application, so I will say, okay, after 6 months I am going to add this feature, after 10 months I am going to add this feature, or I can say, okay, this is valid up to 3 months only, after 3 months I am going to remove this. So whatever my vision is there with respect to that technology, that is called my technology roadmap. Okay, so based on, if suppose you are going to buy some technology, you need to see what is the technology roadmap of that tech. Okay, so that is what we call as roadmap. Next is renewal cycle. So here renewal cycle means the upgrades or the updates or the security patches or any such thing that is happening with the software, we call that as a renewal cycle. So if it is happening with the specific duration, that is where we call it as a renewal cycle. Refers to the innovation cycle. Cycle informs user about updates, investment and tracking of planned. So here why the question of renewal is coming, because as an individual system, when we are downloading some software, we don't see about the innovation cycle because we are focused only on one single laptop or single computer. But coming to organization, if there is any update, they have to update in all the, I can say, all the systems, right? Or if there is a server from which the application is accessed by all the system, then doing any kind of changes in the service is very critical. Okay, even if there is a slightest mistake, the complete organization infrastructure can goes down. That's why the renewal cycle is an important, or I can say keen factor uh, with respect to the organization. Is there a vendor support? So for example, our core functionality is the consultancy. Okay, now my employees want a transportation system, like they want company to provide cabs so they can come to office and go to home in the company cab. So I cannot focus on providing or getting the cabs and making sure that the employees can sit in them and reach the home safely. Okay, that is not my core functionality. So what I will do is, I will consider I will talk to a vendor. Okay, he will take care of all the transportation department, because my focus is to my work is to focus on my core business. So here I am getting the vendor who can focus on the transport department, and he will make sure that everyone is using company cabs and they are reaching their homes safely and coming to office safely. Okay, so that's how I am reducing my work stress by paying some other vendor some amount so that he can take care of the transportation system. But coming to here, when we are talking about information technology, when we are getting some new technology into the organization, at that time we go for the vendor. Okay, again it depends on the organization, but here vendor support means whoever is providing technology, can we have some group of people or a bunch of people who can help us or support the organization in getting that technology installed in the organization and having the people trained and get habituated to the technology. So that is called a vendor support. Okay, now what will be the nature of lock-in? So this is like lock-in is one of the crucial factors. So it seems like when you have the technology in your organization and your employees are working with it, all is settled, everything is good, well and good. Now is there a sudden change? Because of some change we need to replace the technology. Okay, or I say we need to replace that tool. So in that case there will be some here lock-in comes. So lock-in means we have some applications which are using that tool. Now because of the login I'm login I'm tightly coupled, that is I'm completely dependent on the software. So it will take me some time, okay, to get out of that application and move to some other application. So that's dependency, how much time that dependency can be removed. So that is called lock-in. So this lock-in or this dependency can be again of various reasons, but dependency on that system because of which we are not able to shift to some other thing is known as a lock-in. Okay, now make or buy. So here as we have seen, if I want to use some automation tool, okay, either I can have some 10 to 20 people as a team and have them work on a tool or to develop a tool for automation, or I can buy an existing automation tool from some other vendor. So these are the two choices available with the organization. Now here organization what they do is they will see whether they can actually do they have a sufficient skill set or is it fine so that they focus on their core functionality and they give money to some other vendor and the vendor will take care of all this. So this decisions again is taken by the management based on the resources available to them and the priority that is required. Okay, so that is what make or buy. So again, these are the questions that uh, is related to infrastructure questions in terms of technology dimensions. So once these infrastructure questions with their respect to business and technology issues are done, they can go and forward, they can proceed with buying of any new technology. Next we have the technology hype cycle. This technology hype cycle, let's say a simple example. Okay, so when anything comes into the market very new and its advertisement or its publicity is done at a very high rate, okay, so everyone goes crazy about it because it is new. And if everyone thinks if I learn that I'll get a good package, I can do this and that. Okay, so they try to use that project, they try to use that tech, or they try to use that product because it has such a hype, such a good advertisement. And after some time people get to know, okay, there is nothing, nothing much valuable was there, or is it like the value or the worth of the tool was not much that was expected after the advertisement, or I can say the hype. So then even media, newspapers, then they'll try to know the real value or the real worth of the tool. Okay, so finally the hype is gone. Now everyone knows what the real value of that tool is. And now again there will be a little hope, and there will be like ground back to reality. Everyone will come back to reality and they will be starting using it if they really need. So why this technology hype cycle we are talking? Because this is something which managers or the organization need to take care before the choosing of technology. Just because there is a hype, if the managers or management chooses a technology, then definitely after they introduce it to the organization or after the hype is gone, they'll face the worst case scenarios. Okay, so here in terms of technology we talk, let's talk about okay, if I say about any software, that will not be good, but yeah. So here initial stages there will be a huge hope and anticipation triggers increases and inflation in expectation. Inflation in the sense increase in the value in terms of expectation. Okay, soon media and users realize that tech is either not mature or not as good as hype. So here mature means not enough support is there, or not enough developers community is there which is going to support the development. Like if we have any queries, we go to Stack Overflow or any other similar sites to search for the solution, or to find what is the code snippet for this kind of functionality. So that kind of community is not there, and which leads to a drop in hype. Now after that hype is gone, users are able to understand what specific tool can do and how it is useful. So the organization needs to come out of this hype cycle and needs to take decision whether the tool is worth the amount paid, or whether it can really solve the issue, or whether it can be really useful in doing some innovation things or not. Okay, so that was technology hype cycle. Coming to infrastructure components, we have two components. One is hardware and the other one is software. Okay, so we are going to see the components on each of them. So in hardware first is processor. So processor is simply a heart of, I can say, a computer. Okay, so now what it does have, it have transistor and gates. So what does gates mean? So if you know about the AND operations and OR operations, so with the help of those kind of gates, it executes all kind of instructions. Okay, now if we see, it fetches the data and it executes. So this is one cycle. Similarly, it fetches more data and executes them. That is second cycle. Like that, in cycles the processor works. So we'll study in detail about the cycle. So instruction cycle and execution cycle. So first comes the instruction, then comes the execution. So once these two are done, so one cycle is completed and the other is started. So one cycle will constitute half of instruction and half of execution, right? So once the cycle is completed, another cycle will start. So how many I can say how many cycles the processor is able to do in one single second. So that is what we call as hertz, or I can say clock speed. So based on that we can see, okay, this processor is this much speed. So based on that we do the comparisons. Okay, so here we have the architecture, I can say circuit design in terms of CISC and RISC. So this is like reduced I am not able to recollect the full form. Yeah, let me check. Right, so this is complex instruction set and this is a reduced instruction set. Now what is the difference between them is, like suppose we have some circuits in the complex instruction set computer, but in coming to RISC, where R means the reduce, so it will simply make sure that the circuit that is designed, right, so it makes use of the same circuit for different functionalities. So that's how the processor is able to perform all the expected functionalities with the reduced set of circuits. Okay, now here let's have a look on the instruction cycle. So instructions and data are read from an external memory and decoded for running them through the gates. So basically here the data, so here data means the instruction as well as the data on which it has to work. So both of them are read from the external memory, decoded, and these are kept in some storage units which are known as which are called as registers. Okay, so registers are nothing but the storage unit for the processor. So in the instruction cycle, it will get all the instructions and data from the secondary memory and it will store them into the registers. Now in execution cycle, what will it will do it will get the instructions and data from the registers and it will execute with the help of gates. And again, after the execution cycle is done, the last step in the execution cycle will be whatever the conclusion or whatever the result they got, they will store it again back into the register. Okay, so if two registers has 1 and one register has 2 and one register has plus, so execution cycle what it will do, it will do 1 plus 2 and the result, that is 3, it will store in one more register. So that's how one cycle is done. Now at the beginning of the other cycle, based on the instruction, it will see whether the 3 has to be considered as a part of next instruction cycle or are we done with that part. Okay, so that's how processor works. Now the second is computer. So this is like, here we can say we have different types of computer based on its portability. Okay, based on what is the purpose of that computer, like if we are using that computer for providing the application to multiple virtual computers, or is it like a single application is running on the desktop and it is serving or responding to all the requests. In that case we call it as a server, and if it is like a personal for an individual switch, we call it as a desktop, or I can say personal computer. So based on its processing capacities and based on its usage, the computer can be of different types, like a desktop or a laptop or a server. Okay, now there are n number of other things as well. Now coming to the third, that is RAM, which is nothing but a random access memory. So here what happens is, suppose you have opened your computer and you have opened your 10 applications. When you have opened your 10 applications and you are able to see 10 applications on your screen, it means it has been running now. When we say that something is running, means it is there in the RAM. Okay, so when you have downloaded a movie, it will be there in your secondary storage, but when you play it, okay, when you start watching it, we call that the movie is there inside the RAM. Now again there is a concept called virtual memory and all with respect to RAM, but for now this is the scope of our understanding. Okay, when you say you are running some application, it means the processor, the CPU had brought that application from the secondary storage to the RAM. Okay, and the RAM is volatile memory. Volatile means when you switch off the system, when the system goes off, everything which is there in the RAM is gone. Unlike the secondary storage where you have downloaded a movie, it will be there even you switch off, even the power goes off, whatever it happens. Okay, contrast to secondary memory. And the RAM speed decides the speed of the device, because we say when we are running something, it is there on the RAM. So how smoothly or how easily are we typing, or how easily we are using all those applications depends on the speed of the RAM. Okay, its speed is measured in terms of nanoseconds. So nanoseconds means 10 to the power 9, I mean minus 9 seconds. Okay, so 1 second is having 10 power 9 nanoseconds. So that is what nanosecond means. Next we have board and bus. So here you can simply say board is nothing but a motherboard on which all the components are placed, like ALU is placed, control unit is placed, bus is placed. So all the devices are dependent on this motherboard. That's why we call this board as motherboard, because everything is placed on this board. So all these are placed on motherboard. To provide modularity, motherboard uses bus to transfer data between components. So here I can say when I'm using mouse, when I'm using a keyboard, so all these are peripheral devices which I'm attaching. So if suppose something I'm clicking on my keyboard and it is going and printing on the screen, so what is happening basically is the motherboard, right, it is basically getting the data from the keyboard and it is giving to the monitor. So that's how the motherboard is making use of the bus to transfer data from one component to the other component. Like it is making communication between the mouse and the keyboard and the monitor and the speaker and the camera. So that's how it makes connection between all of them. Next we have secondary storage. So these are multiple types. Again, the fixed storage, removable storage. So the very basic example is like USB or pen drive, flash drive, CDs, which have a limited capacity and it is removable. So I think this is a self-explanatory. But coming to fixed storage, you have hard disk, correct? You have registers. You can remove them, but it is not like you regularly remove them until and unless you want to replace it or you want to have some repairing done on that. So we don't call it them as a removable storage. So those things are called as fixed storage. So they will have a capacity sufficient to hold operating system and application software because they are meant for that. So when you're defining this, you can picturize the hard disk and then you can say what is hard disk meant for. Okay. So if you don't have a hard disk, you cannot run Windows or any Linux or any operating system because there needs to be some space for them. Okay, right. Next, coming to peripherals. So peripherals are all the participant components for running the system, I can say. Like for monitor is for viewing the output, for keyboards and for keyboard and mouse is for providing some kind of inputs, printer is to get some output. So all these peripherals which is meant for running, like infrastructure is meant for the, or I can say infrastructure is the artifact which is meant for running the organization. Similarly, peripherals are the devices which ease the individual to work with the computer. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Next we have a tablet computers. So tablet computers are nothing but it is made up of processor and memory mounted on a board with the provision of connector and user interface. So here I can, you know, tablets, right? So it's like a simple portable devices in which we have some chips and small operating system, and it will provide us with all the applications that a computer is providing. But it is not comparable to computer because computer is providing the same application but at a higher scale. Okay, with a higher comfortability, with a big screen. But the same thing we are getting that in the tablet, but at a lower scale, I can say, with the less memory, with the less speed, less capacity. Okay, so those things are nothing but tablets. So I can say a kind of mini computer with a mini, I can say, with low scaled performance, low scaled resolutions. Okay, so that is called a computer. So why we call it as a computer? Because it has all the properties, like it is made up of processor, it has some secondary storage and some registers mounted on the board. Here board is nothing but like we have Arduino boards and all those kind of things. Like we go when we say about, when we talk about Internet of Things, we have some motherboards, small chips like we have in coffee machine. So those kind of small chips are also there in the tablets. But yeah, again there is a bit higher comparison. So I hope the tablet computers make sense to you. So this was all about hardware. Next, coming to the software. So first is operating system. So I can call this as an interface between an hardware and software. Okay, so it controls all hardware in the system, manages works given processor. So basically what it does is when we want to try something, so first we start our system, right? So starting the system, what it does is it goes to the RAM, because if operating system needs to work and everything that is working, we call that it is in the RAM. So first operating system goes into the RAM when the system is starting. In the technical terms we call it as when the system is booting up. Okay, so operating system runs into the RAM and then it will take care of what to do next. So that is what we call it as okay, now suppose I want to run I can say I want to run one application, okay, which is a very important thing, and in parallel I'm trying to watch YouTube. And if suppose there is some more task is coming, now the RAM cannot support all three, so it will see whether the incoming request is more priority or the one that is executing. So based on that, again it is going to be crashing some application, or it is going to give priority to some other. So what needs to be run, what not needs to be run, what is it that needs to be stopped. So if you can see in your task manager, there will be some background process which is always running. Okay, so sometimes some system process will be stopped because that is of not much priority compared to the application request which the user is giving. So It basically prioritize and puts that task into the RAM and asks the RAM to execute that instruction. So it manages all the incoming requests and it schedules like, okay, at this time this needs to be done, after this task needs to be done, and it does all the loading and unloading task in RAM, because if it wants to execute something, it will load that task into the RAM, and after the task is done, or if it doesn't want to execute, it will unload, or I can say remove the task from the RAM. Okay, so we have multiple types of operating system like Linux, Windows, Mac operating system. So Mac operating system is also known as Macintosh. It is basically only for the Apple system. Similarly, Windows, this is much more familiar with everyone. So basically the issue with Windows is we cannot go into much depth. Okay, so like Linux, we can try to do anything with the Linux operating system. We can write our own part of source code of the operating system and we can append it, because Linux is a open source operating system, so it allows us to do anything that we want, provided that we are a root. But coming to Windows, there will be some restriction, okay, that this part of the code cannot be touched, and it is mainly meant for the GUI purpose, that is graphical user interface purpose. So it is not meant for people like hackers or who want to develop some in-depth tool. Okay, yeah, we can do that, but again it is not recommended for that. Again, each of them will have its own advantages and disadvantages. Like Mac OS are very expensive, so you cannot find it with everyone usual. So you basically, this kind of operating system is used in education institution, or where we do have, like in big organization, in MNCs. Okay, everything will have its own usage. Like compared to the Linux, Windows have less security, it has less security to the virus. Now we have to add antivirus separately, which will cost again separately. But coming to Linux, it will have its own security layer, it is comparatively less uh, vulnerable to the viruses. So there are multiple such differences in each of the operating systems. So based on the organization's requirement, or based on individual's requirement, we go for the types of operating system. Okay, now without operating system, a system cannot run. Okay, but application software, it is not like that. It allows user to computer to do their work. Like if I want to use calculator, I can use it, it is my application software. If I remove the calculator, still the system will work, correct? Now a calendar or calculator or similar, like Microsoft Word, I can say, these are meant for doing some specific task for the individual, but it is not meant for running the system. Even if I delete Paint, calculator, calendar, Microsoft, still the system will work. Okay, so the softwares which are meant for doing some specific purpose for the user, it is called as application software. Okay, so some example is the database. So if you have not seen the previous video where we were discussing about the database, so database is simply, I can say, a storage space where I store the data of different formats into different formats. Okay, it is basically used for storing the data based on some collection, and it is useful for doing operations like fetching in a different manner. Okay, saving it as a file, sharing it to someone else. Okay, and for lots of such purpose. So the main database type that we can see in the organizations is Oracle, and but after a long period of time, we can see that a rival is coming across the Oracle, which is MS SQL, because it is very fast, it is secure, and it has many required features. But the most uh, the feature that comes on the top, that it is free of cost. Okay, so because it is free of cost, even the students are making use of it, and they are getting habituated to it even when they go in the organization. Because of the features of MS SQL, even the application are trying to shift from Oracle to MS SQL. Okay, but yeah, as we have talked about the lock-in period, once we choose any one kind of database, it is very difficult to move to some other database. Of course it can be done, but it will be like difficult. So that is where we call it as a lock-in. So when we are choosing the database, we need to make sure that we answer all the questions that we have discussed in previously in terms of technology adoption. Next we have enterprise software. So as we have seen, this is one kind of software, this is one kind of software. So enterprise software is meant for managing the complete organization. Like we have customer relation management, ERP software. So it helps the different departments to coordinate, communicate, share the data among the departments, creating reports, and many such other uses, which is meant as a whole for the organization. Okay, for example, SAP. Okay, so this is used by most of the organization, and there is barely any that much level of rival for it. Now SAP is again a higher level tool. Inside SAP we'll have multiple open source projects, many modules. There will be hundreds and thousands of services. Again, inside that, the organization chooses the service according to the requirement. Okay, so those kind of things are called enterprise software. So in this same subject we are going to study about 2-3 types of I can say enterprise software, like the CRM. Okay, next we have office productivity. So what does this mean? So let's say I consider Microsoft PowerPoint, Word document, Excel, OneNote, like we have taken example previously. This set of softwares is meant for, like, okay, let's say I consider the example of a SharePoint or Confluence, or you know about spreadsheet, right? So these kind of things I can use to write something and share it to some other colleagues in my office. I can use them to work from home, and then I can share that changes without like making a copying of it and sending it to email. All those things are not required. I can directly make use that office software. I can do the changes and the other person can receive it. So office productivity are nothing but the set of apps that are primarily used for individual workings, that is similar to application software. Now goal is to enable individual users to be productive. Okay, so now I am using basically a paint for drawing something, a PowerPoint for drawing the flowchart, but there will be some higher level tools, or I can say more developed tools, like licensed tools, for which basically if I buy as an individual I need to pay cost. So organization is giving it to me so that I can make best use of it, like a Photoshop or such kind of things. Okay, I hope now you are clear with office productivity. Okay, so this is basically to improve the productivity of an individual, and also to share the file across the organization, because if you write in general tools, there is a possibility that you cannot share the files to other people. Okay, next we have utilities. So some software packages are designed to perform specific tasks related to managing files and data on computer. So it specifically deals with the files and data. So compression tools means if the file size is 1 GB, if you compress it, it will come to 800 or 700 MB. So that is useful for various purpose, like before storing I will compress it so that when I save it, it will take less space. Similarly, if I want to edit any image or any file, I will have separate documents. So like the tools which are meant for managing the files and data will come under the utilities. Now next we have networking. So networking is all kinds of tools and drivers and such things which will help me to connect to somewhere else. Okay, for example, the number of software packages provide access to internet. So when you talk about internet, how are you accessing internet? Based on the browser. Now again, there is a different types of browser, like if you have Google Chrome, you can use it only in Windows operating system, but if you go for the Firefox, you can use it in different operating system. Now because Firefox I can use it in different operating system, I can call that as a cross platform browsers. So this was one such application. Next we have email. So again, this is used to send I know you know what is email, but yeah, this was an example which is helping me to connect to some other person or some other organization on the network. That's why this is called as a networking software. Similarly, I have tools to deal with the non-textual data, meaning the images, the videos, and the software developments tools like ID. If I'm showing this video to you, and if I don't do any edit, that is fine. But if I do some edited like Filmora or some other video editing software, those will all will come under the multimedia softwares. Now coming to software development, if I want to write a code, it in a notepad, it is not recommended, because if there is some error, I need to find it manually. So there are some IDEs like Eclipse, IntelliJ, and many such IDEs, or I can say development environments, which helps me to write to put a minimum effort in writing the code. So all these tools will come under the networking. Next we have games and entertainment. So this is again a big scope for development. Okay, so by the name itself you can see all the tools which is meant for the gaming purpose or the entertainment purpose. Okay, now the basic parameter behind is the requirement is the high graphics. Coming to next, I have embedded software. So you can like I have not written numericals, like given the proper numbers or bullets to every subheadings, but I hope this makes sense. This was a networking, this is a multimedia software, this is a software development, then we have a games entertainment. So next we have a embedded software. So like we have taken an example of a coffee machine where we have a separate chip inside the coffee machine saying that okay, if this is the button pressed, this is the juice or this is the coffee that you have to release. So those kind of chips or softwares which is meant for um, doing specific functions are called embedded software. So these are the processors which have different capabilities and have different instruction set than compared to our general purpose processor. This is the processor that we have discussed in the central processing unit or the CPU. Okay, so these are used to control machinery, hardware, fluid. So embedded software is a software which is meant to do only one specific task, and the way they should operate is also different. Okay, so software is resident on a processor chip and designed to have a small footprint. Okay, those will be small in size and will have a different way of execution, and they are meant for a specific purpose. Okay, next we have like embedded software in lifts, in remote cars, in drones. These are some examples. Okay, so next we have networks. This we have seen already. Any software, any hardware that helps us to communicate someone else on the network are comes under the networking softwares. Finally we have solutions, which is the virtualization and enterprise system. So we will understand virtualization with the help of an example. Okay, if you have used a tool called VMware or any similar software where, okay, if you are not from technical background, let's say you have a system in which Windows operating system is there. Now you also want to have a Linux operating system at the same time. So what you will do is, of course you can go with the dual boot mode, but otherwise what you can have is you can have system or application software which could provide virtualization. Now just forget the term virtualization for a moment, but just remember that we have tools which could provide virtualization. Okay, in a moment you will get to know what it is. So I am going to have a tool called VMware for example sake, and then on top of that I am going to install a Linux operating system. So here basically I have Windows operating system and Linux operating system both working at the same time. But previously we have seen that operating system is the interface between the software and the hardware. So here how does multiple operating system can work at the same time? So here we can say that there is one more layer kept between the operating system. I can say there is one layer kept between the software and the hardware. Okay, so when there is one more layer that is coming in between the software and hardware, so each operating system will directly communicate with the virtualized layer but not the hardware. So first layer is our software layer, okay, in which we are running Windows operating system and the Linux operating system. Below that we have a virtualized layer, and below that we have something called a hardware layer. So now operating systems are communicating with the virtualized layer rather than the hardware. So here, because of the virtualized layer, we can have multiple operating system which are communicating to the virtualized layer, and virtualized layer will take care of what is the request coming from each of the operating system and what needs to be done with the hardware. So that's how we can have multiple operating system running at the same time. So that's how we can see that the coupling between the hardware and software is reduced. Okay, so here we can say software layer is placed, that is another layer is placed between the operating system and hardware. Okay, so there is a software layer which I termed as a virtualized layer, which is placed between the operating system and hardware system. Okay, similarly we can take an example of okay, it's fine, I think one example is more than enough. Next we have enterprise system. So as we have studied previously about the customer relation management, so where a salesperson is going to a customer and he is taking details from them, those details are coming to organization, and how much amount is spent by the organization on the customer, how much amount customers spend in buying something from the organization. So all that money is coming to the organization from the sales department to the finance department, now from the finance department to the payroll department, where he will be deciding the bonus of the salesperson. So that's how all the departments of the organization are connected to each other based on some systems which are helping the organization to function. Those kind of application systems we call it as an enterprise system. So this class of system allows multiple possible application to run in a centralized coordinated manner. Okay, so here we can see there is one application which is taking the data from the sales executives and it is storing in one common database. Now from that database there is one more software which is fetching the data and it is giving to some other place, and overall coordination is happening from a centralized place. So examples of that is nothing but ERP, customer relation management system. So in detail about this is not in the scope of today's session, but yeah, these are some of the examples. Now final solution of the IT infrastructure is the IT outsourcing. So as we have taken an example of transport department, where my core functionality is consultancy, but I will not focus on providing cabs to my employees and focus on whether they reach the home safely or not. Okay, I'll have some other vendor to take care of this. Similarly, when other technology is coming to the organization, I will decide whether I want to make it or I want a vendor to support it. Like vendor means some other person who is a supplier of technology and who's going to support me or give maintenance to me. Okay, so the model in which here we are not deciding whether we want to build it or whether we want to buy from someone else. Okay, so outsourcing means giving a core functionality or giving some part of the functionality to some external person to take care of. I am repeating this statement that IT outsourcing means that if our intention is to get some technology implemented in the organization, instead of me focusing on that, I will ask some other vendor or some external person to take care of this complete thing. Okay, so that is called outsourcing. When organization hires management to take care of infrastructure and services, and reasons to outsource. Okay, so reasons to outsource means why we are asking someone else to take care of that, because either the organization does not have enough skill set, or if they try to build the tool from the very scratch, that will be costly, and again it will be regarded as a staff function. Means they need to hire the people who can develop that, and they need to retain them, they need to pay them well, they need to maintain the complete team as long as the maintenance and the development is done. So the focus is shifting from their core functionality to this non-core functionality. So to avoid all those things, they are going for the IT outsourcing. Now the way or the model in which the contract is built between the organization and the vendor, those are four types. Okay, so first is time and interval. So before seeing for the heading, let's say the organization is new to this kind of technology and they are not aware what is the exact requirement. So what they will do is, okay, they will ask vendor, you bring all your sources, like all your technology, all your people to my place, and you try to set up everything, and then we'll try to have the production started, and then you can see what is the scale required, what is the amount of requests that is happening, and based on that you take care of what my requirement. Because here as a client, as an organization, I don't know what amount of or what level of scaling is required for the technology that is coming up. Okay, so in this time and interval, vendor brings a staff, his own staff and his own resources at the client place for building system, as client is not sure of the requirement. So after everything is done, vendor builds the organization based on the number of hours and the amount of technology that is taken by the organization, and the amount of effort that is spent hourly based by each of the employee that a vendor has brought. So that's why here we call it as a time and interval. Next we have exchange based. So here the client knows what he wants. So contract is made that between the client and vendor, where client says that this is the specific task that has to be done, and this much amount that they are going to pay at the end of this much, or I can say after the end of this quarter I can pay this much, at the end of this much work I can pay this much. So that's how the complete exact specified contract is done. In that model we call it as an exchange based. Now finally we go for the cloud based. So a cloud based, the client enters into agreement with the vendor, saying that he will the client, that is the organization, will make use of the vendor services which are there on the cloud. So here what the promises or the text or the content in the contract is, there will be some specification or some tweaks or some changes that they require, that the client require to be done in the cloud based services, so that it suits the nature of the business. So here the vendor will provide all the customization, and I can see that after all the customization of software, the hardware and software remain its client side. Now contract is fixed. Okay, now as soon as all the customization is done and the client started using the services, so there will be some fixed charge. Okay, if you use it or not, or if you use it at a full scale, I don't care. There will be some fixed cost. Okay, apart from that fixed cost, based on the usage, based on the scale at which the service is being used by the organization, annual or monthly fee will be there, which is variable based upon the usage. So that is called cloud based. And now the final model is called joint venture. So here what happens is, even the vendor and the client, so both together form a come into a partnership. Now when this vendor is providing services to the client, although they are in the partner, means they found a common organization, but still vendor is providing services to the client as a lateral client. Okay, now both invest capital, but a vendor provides the skill set and the resources, or I can say employees, uh, to the first client. To the first client means the client who is partnered with the vendor. Now here I can see that there is one organization which is having vendor as well as client. Now vendor is providing skill set to the client and all his resources, with the objective that they are going to scale in the future, and by providing services as of now, they can expertise and they can advertise and they can gain popularity, because even the vendor and client both has profit in this. So if you see, once the vendor is providing to the partnered client, and if any new clients comes based on the experience, or based on the services that the current client is that the current client, or I can say the partner client, is experiencing, the other clients also might come up in the market. So if the vendor starts giving services to other clients as well, the current or the parent client to which the vendor is partnered with, he will be also realizing some kind of profits. Okay, so that's how both are gaining, or I can say both are growing in the market. But here is the huge disadvantages. If the organization fails to get the new clients, then they will be moving back to the exchange based. Now exchange based we have seen here, where there will be a specified contracts that this much time, this much task, this much amount. Okay, so this joint venture will be dissolving to the exchange based model. So these were the types in which the IT outsourcing will be done. Okay, so virtualization, enterprise system, and IT outsourcing were some of the solutions to the IT to the solutions of our topic, that is IT infrastructure. Okay, next, our final topic, that is BYOD. So BYOD is the abbreviation of bring your own device. So this enables out of office and in office collaboration seamlessly. That means when I want to access any organization resource, it is not like I need to sit in the organization, I need to use their very own laptop, or I need to use this organization system, because if that is the case, then there will be some, I can say, some obstacle to the employees productivity, or there will be like organization is not making full use of its employees efficiency. Okay, so even that is one point of the BYOD. And the second point is, like in general we bring our mobiles, our iPads and all the things to the office, right? So if that is restricted, again there will be some effect on the satisfaction or the flexibility or the comfortness of the employee. So in either of the ways, even the organization is at loss, even the employees at loss. But if the organization allows the customer to bring their own devices, then there is a question of security. So if more number of devices are coming into the organization, there is a probability of more vulnerabilities, attacks, viruses. So that's why the organizations are coming with different kind of policies, like they will use the virtualization, as we have studied recently. So they'll try to give access to people that okay, you can bring your own devices, but if you want to access some companies or resources, like you want to use company's Gmail or company's mail or company's Skype, so in that case you need to have some virtualization applications installed on your system, and then you will be given access, so that in your laptop, or I can say in your mobile, okay, you will have your personal data as well, and you have your organization's data as well, but there will be no relation between both of them because of the virtualization, or I can say some other measurements taken by the organization. So overall intentions behind the BYOD, that is bring your own device, is the satisfaction of the customer and the benefit of both employees and the organization, so that the best the efficiency of the employees is used at its max. Okay, so with the help of BYOD, even if I am accessing something from my home itself, that is like I can say work from home, or there is some emergency required at the end of some midnight say. So even in that case, because of the BYOD, because of the measurement that is taken by the organization, I am able to access the organization resources or organization work from my personal laptop. Okay, so again this is helping organization as well, and if suppose, and in some or the other way, it is good for the employees as well. So yeah, that's it for today. I know that it was like much more than duration than what is expected, but at the end of the day, I hope the concepts are clear. And if you have any queries with respect to the information technology infrastructure and choices, okay, so if you have any queries, please write down that in the comment section. If you have any suggestions, even those are appreciated as well. And finally, if you like to my explanation, please do subscribe, click on notification bell, and share it to as many people as possible. Okay, so yeah, that's it for today. Hope you like the video. Thank you.